I used to teach in Cochrane. We moved to Cochrane back in the 70s. Cochrane still had a grain elevator. It was a very small town. The first time my sons saw the painting, they recognized themselves, they recognized their clothes, and I now paint full-time, and I have for the past 14 years. I don't teach anymore. And I thoroughly enjoyed teaching, but it was time for a change. I wanted to paint, and I couldn't do both. So gave up teaching to paint full-time. When I was teaching at Cochrane High School, it became tradition for teachers to go to the Legion for a beer on Friday afternoons. And the main reason was that we knew there would be no students at the Legion. So it was a place that you could actually go sit and have a beer and not run into a student, which wasn't always the case. For example, you could run into a student at the liquor store if you were buying. So it was a very small town, and as a teacher you were pretty conspicuous. So that was the place to go. We were in the Legion, and there was a fairly large painting hanging on the wall. And it was a rodeo scene in Cochrane. And there were two boys. One was sitting on the bottom rail by the fence, and the other one was hanging on to the fence. And I looked and I said, "Those are my sons at the rodeo." And they were just little guys. And everybody said, "Oh, yeah, yeah." And I said, "No, seriously, they are. Those are the clothes that they had. That's what they were wearing." And I remember the rodeo we were at. They would always go down with all the other kids to the fence and then sit there and watch the rodeo. The painting had these two boys, one very blonde hanging onto the fence like a little monkey, which is what our youngest son would do, and the other one sitting on the rail. So for years, I'd go to the Legion, and it would be, "Those are my kids in that painting." And everybody got really sick and tired of hearing me say this story, and I told my family about, "You guys are in a painting at the Legion." And of course, nobody really believed me, but I was convinced. I would at times think about that painting at the Legion, even though I didn't go to the Legion very often because I wasn't teaching anymore. I would think about that painting and really think, I have to make an effort to get that painting. I wonder if the Legion would sell it to me. I don't know, what their criteria are, but I really didn't want that painting to be lost. I really wanted it to be part of my collection because it had my kids in it. And the following week, I got a phone call from Rick MacDonald, who was still principal of Cochrane High, and Frank Hennessy. And they asked, they said they needed to talk to me, and could they come out? And I said, sure. They would come out at lunchtime, so I said, well, you might as well come for lunch. So I made lunch, and I really didn't know what they wanted to talk about, whether we had this retreat facility and whether they wanted to book a retreat or whatever, I don't know, or wanted me to do some part-time teaching. But so they came and we were sitting on the deck having lunch, and they said, the reason we came here was to give you something, but you have to guess what it is. And my first thought was, it's just flashed through my mind, it's the painting from the Legion. And then I thought, no, you can't say that, because they would never do that. But it was just such a clear thought in my mind. And I just kind of dismissed it. So I played guessing game, is it this, is it that? No. Is it, is it art? Yes. And then I finally said, it's got to be the painting from the Legion. And they said yes. So they hauled out this big painting with this monster frame around it and said, this is for you. And I was so incredibly moved. It just amazed me that they would remember after all those years that that was the painting. I was so moved. It was just such an incredible thing for them to do. And that's how I acquired the painting. And it does have my sons in the painting. It's definitely there. And when they were driving out to my place, Rick McDonald said, I said to the other guys, I sure hope that those are her kids in the painting, that she hasn't been lying to us all these years, because we would look really stupid. So I said, no, those are my kids in the painting. And the first time my sons saw the painting, they recognized themselves, they recognized their clothes, and so it's now a family heirloom, and I'm not sure if there'll be a lot of fighting over that painting when it eventually ends up being theirs, but it certainly will stay in the family and is a much valued piece of art.